You better fix your brother. Dad barked at me after I nearly died, but I was done parenting their kids while battling kidney failure alone. Hello everyone, I am a 40-year-old male from a large family. I'm the second oldest of 9 children. My older sister Lena is only a year older than me. There is a 6-year gap between me and my next sibling, and my mother had children every 2 to 3 years. Since Lena and I were the oldest, we were constantly tasked with looking after the younger children and doing housework. In fact, my parents and other adults frequently referred to us as Lena, OP, and the kids, as if Lena and I were not considered children. It's like if we were 2 other individuals living in the house. We were homeschooled, so we spent all of our time at home. Part of my job entailed getting up, making breakfast for the kids, and getting them started with their school or activities before beginning my own schooling. Lena slept in since she was a night owl, and it was her responsibility to help with the baby at night because there was always one. Lena and I did the majority of the household tasks. We alternated between cleaning the kitchen and doing the laundry, which was rather extensive. I did all the guys' stuff like mowing the lawn and putting out the garbage. As I became older, I delegated some of these responsibilities to my younger brothers, but it was still my obligation to make sure they were completed. When I was old enough to drive, I would conduct errands and transport the kids around. I can't tell you how many times I've taken the kids to playdates or doctor's appointments. I'd often snuggle the youngsters into bed and tell them stories. These things seemed natural to me at the time, but in retrospect, I felt more like a second father to the kids than a sibling. As teenagers, Lena and I had a lot of flexibility to hang out with our friends if we finished our tasks. We did not have cell phones back then. If we wanted to go out, we would just tell our parents, and they didn't mind as long as we returned by the next morning. I moved out when I was 20, but I still spent a lot of time with my parents, and one of my younger siblings was virtually always there at my home. Cal, one of my brothers, has basically lived with me since he was 14 years old because he and our mother did not get along. Cal was 17 years old when he was involved in a car accident and called me rather than his father because I was the one who handled such situations. Throughout this period, my parents frequently mentioned how vital it was for Lena and I to assist with the children because they were so busy with their ministry. I can't remember how many times I had to stop what I was doing to care for anything, because mom or dad were counseling someone. Sorry, I think I'm rambling. I hope I have accurately described my childhood. Let us go forward. I hadn't dated much, but when I was 25, I met and began dating Mira. We fell in love quickly and were married less than a year later. My younger siblings adore Mira. She is an excellent cook and hostess. Our house became a popular hangout. My younger siblings began calling her Mama Mira, which they still do to this day. We have now been married for 15 years and have 2 children of our own. Mira was disliked by both my mother and Lena. Lena and Mira get along well now, but Mira and my mother do not. I've never understood why, but I believe I finally figured it out. It's because they believe Mira has taken me away. As Mira and I focused on our relationship and began a family, I spent less and less time caring for my parents. My father initially liked Mira, but their relationship has worsened in recent years. Throughout the years, my father has made statements to me about fulfilling my responsibilities. One day he phoned me about one of the younger kids who had gotten into a disagreement with my mom and said, "You better get your brother and change his attitude. It's not okay how he treated your mom, and you are going to make him apologize." Mira and I established some ground rules with my parents a few years ago, stating that we would not raise or discipline their children. My siblings are always welcome in our home, but we will no longer allow my parents to use us to straighten them up. My parents haven't taken it well. Mira damaged her foot around a year ago and was unable to walk for quite some time. Just as she was getting well, I was diagnosed with kidney disease, which progressed to kidney failure. I've undergone multiple operations, with another one scheduled in a few weeks. It's been a tough year. During this period, my parents have not only refused to help, but have intentionally made things more difficult for us, such as agreeing to help with our children but then canceling at the last minute, generally due to a ministry-related commitment. My sister-in-law, who lives in another state, recently gave birth, and my mother has been staying with her and assisting her for the past 6 weeks. My SIL has described mom as a godsend and a great person. My father has gone to help every weekend. This upsets me because my mother refused to allow us a single night to care for our youngest when he was born. Anyway, I apologize for making this post longer than I intended. I needed to get some things off my chest. This weekend I was telling another sister that I don't understand why mom and dad don't treat me like the other kids, even Lena. It's as if I'm not one of their children, and it now dawned on me that they blame me for marrying and starting my own family while abandoning them to raise their own children. Part of me is relieved to now understand why they treat me the way they do, and part of me is saddened. I'm nervous about this approaching surgery, And I wish I had a parent to talk to about it, but I don't feel like I have any parents, only people with whom I co-parented my siblings. Update 1. I talked to my wife Mira about it last night. I said something along the lines of, I've realized that my parents resent me for starting my own family and not helping them as much, and that is why they treat me so differently, and I think you've been trying to gently tell me this for years, but I was too dense to get it. We were sitting in the bed at the time, and she leaned over and patted my head and said, "You are so beautiful." I laughed for maybe 10 minutes. It was an excellent emotional release. Many of you mentioned how lovely she sounds, and she truly is. I can't convey how much I adore her. About Lena. My older sister Lena married and started a family roughly 2 years after I did. Lena and I had a falling out and didn't communicate for several years, but we're fine now, just not particularly close. Our disagreement was mostly religious in nature. She is highly religious, like my parents, although I am not. I am religious, and we go to church, but it is not our entire lives, as it is for my parents and Lena. Younger siblings. The youngest is 22, so they're all grown-ups now. The second to youngest went away several years ago, leaving 8 of us. I'm really close to all of my younger siblings. They continue to visit my home on a regular basis, and they are all wonderful aunts and uncles to my children. All of them, including Lena, are dissatisfied with how my parents have treated me over the past year. Help with my kids. While I am upset at my parents for not helping, I do not require their assistance. Mira and I have close pals, and we also have siblings that help. Mira's parents live far away, but they help whenever they can. We are perfectly okay and feel very blessed and loved because of all the aid we have gotten. Therapy. Part of my renal treatment plan includes seeing a therapist, and I adore her. She has been really helpful in teaching me how to live with an illness. I'm not sure whether she's the best person to talk to about my parents, but I'll ask her and see if she can recommend someone. If not, I'll wait until after my surgery to bring it up because I need to focus on that right now. Setting boundaries. When I say my parents won't assist, I don't mean they won't, but rather that they volunteer to help, and then either bail at the last minute or change the plan so drastically that Mira and I are stressed out. Mira was sick a few months back, and my mother offered to take up our kids from school. It's a long story, but she kept altering things and complicating matters, and my youngest was left alone for a short period of time, which worried him. After that, I had a confrontational conversation with my parents, telling them how disgusted I was in them and how I wanted to focus on my health, and they were making it worse. I told them they could not take my children anywhere. They are not allowed to merely stop by my house, and they are not even permitted to offer to assist, because my mother will not take no for an answer and will nag until she wears me out. My parents were upset about this, but all 7 of my siblings rallied with me, and my parents have so far respected that. Going no contact. Many people suggested no contact. I do not want that. Despite the fact that my parents were not terrific parents, I still adore them. My children adore them, and I don't want to take that away. When they arrive, they make excellent grandparents. I don't think my parents are terrible people. I believe they had a goal of having a large family and a large ministry, but they underestimated the duties they imposed on Lena and me. I've spoken to them before about how it was wrong that they put so much pressure on us as children, and they've apologized. Putting my parents on blast in their church, several individuals suggested going to their church and telling them how I was treated. You do not understand this church. They would commend my parents for prioritizing God and the ministry over all else. These really religious folks are insane. I think that's it for now. My operation is in less than 2 weeks, so I'll focus on that. I'm going to put this conversation with my parents on hold for the time being, and then I'll determine what, if anything, to do. Thank you again for your comments. It's truly helped me get through some emotions. Update 2. Thank you to everyone who has contracted out to wish me a speedy recovery. My operation was last week, and things are doing better than predicted. All of the surgeries and treatments I've had in the last year have felt like they were just keeping me alive. But with this surgery and kidney transplant, I feel like I'm working toward resuming my normal life. It's been difficult and painful, but I expected it to be worse, so I can't complain at all. Mira is always complaining that she doesn't receive enough credit for her comedic abilities, so the fact that so many of you laughed when she said I was lovely made her happy. She stated, "I like these Reddit people." This entire post began while I was having a conversation with one of my sisters. I'll call her 6 since I can't keep coming up with names, and she's following this thread and will be offended if I call her that. 6 had an argument with our parents, and I was telling her that Mira and I had recently established firm limits with them and encouraged her to do the same. So she did, and they didn't take it well. This prompted multiple conversations with other siblings, and both 5 and 9 agreed to establish some boundaries. This has also prompted other siblings to approach our parents about how they have treated me over the previous year while I was sick. The day before my operation, Lena, the oldest, called to check on me, and we ended up talking about our upbringing. We had not been in touch in some years. However, I believe we bonded on this call. It was interesting to chat to her as an adult and relive some experiences. She has been in therapy for a few years, and she claims that her therapist will occasionally stop her and say, "Lena, you just casually rolled through some messed up stuff. We need to stop and unpack this." For a long time, I blamed her for how she treated me when we were younger, but I'm finally realizing that she was just a kid trying to survive. I have much more grace for her now. We've been messaging a lot these past few weeks. My parents did come to see me after the surgery, but we didn't discuss any family turmoil. My siblings have stated that they are having difficulty accepting these new limitations. I hope that one day they wake up and realize that all 8 of their children are disappointed in them, and that they strive to be better people, but I'm not holding my breath. They appear to be placing all of the blame, as they usually do. This is just an attack by the devil. Mira and I determined that in the future, we will maintain low touch with strong limits. With such a huge family, going no contact would be difficult and would result in a number of unpleasant situations in which we would still need to visit them. We've also talked to our children, and both have shown a desire to establish a relationship with their grandparents. While I don't expect my parents to change, I am confident they will accept our boundaries. My attitude about them has likewise shifted. I no longer feel as if I owe them anything. We will maintain our contact with them because it is best for my family, not because they deserve it. Finally, I was recommended to a family therapist and have an appointment scheduled for next month. Update 3. I've tried several times to write an update, but I either can't find the words or ramble on for 10 pages about my health. I'm going to push through, and I hope this makes sense. In May 2023, shortly after writing my first post, I underwent a kidney transplant. Recovering has been the primary focus of my life, but it is not the purpose of my report, so I will try to keep this section brief. Things were excellent right after the transplant, and I recovered considerably faster than expected. Then I had a dumb illness, which caused some tiny setbacks that eventually led to a larger setback, and my body began to reject the replacement kidney. It was not a good period, and I spent the holidays of last year, 2024, in and out of the hospital receiving various therapies. The therapies were difficult, but they performed their work. My body currently shows no evidence of rejection, and the virus is under control. Maintaining my health and new kidney will be a lifelong journey, but for the time being, everything is stable, and I'm feeling better than I have since before falling sick in 2023. I had mentioned how my older sister Lena and I hadn't spoken in years, and when we eventually did, we kept our distance. She had contacted me after my first post, when I was beginning to work through some issues, and we discussed how we were raised. We both had lately learned the term parentification, and we discussed it. We started communicating more after trauma bonding, which was a new phrase for me. Her family ended up coming to town late in 2023 and staying for a few weeks, giving us ample opportunity to converse and interact. I had harshly condemned her for things she had done as a child, but I eventually realized she was just a youngster who was under a lot of strain, forced to raise a bunch of kids, and she was desperate for some control in her life, which happened to be me. There were many tears and apologies on both sides, since I had not always been kind to her. We've grown closer than we've ever been, and we talk a couple of times every month. My family will be visiting her folks this summer. Our children are thrilled, as they have grown close as well. I'm not sure how to handle the following bit concerning my parents. My initial post was spurred by some conflict between my parents and various siblings, including how my parents had been unhelpful when I was coping with my kidney troubles. We all banded together and established strict limits with our parents, which they did not appreciate. At first, someone observed, "It sounds like you and your siblings are bullying your parents into being better people," which may be the best way to characterize what occurred. Just before my operation, I had a very direct chat with my folks. I had prepared by writing down the essential points I wanted to say. I wasn't angry when we talked. I merely gave multiple examples of how they had not only failed to help, but also made things more difficult for my family when I was sick. I basically informed them that I didn't need or want their support since I didn't trust them. Something about that, as well as the fact that all of my siblings were together, seemed to click with my father. He didn't say much at the moment, but he didn't defend himself or try to deflect criticism. Over the next 6 months they would check in by text once a week. If we were feeling up to it, I would encourage them to stop over, which they did several times. They offered to deliver a supper, and we accepted. They didn't push when I wasn't feeling it. This was all part of the boundaries I had established, which they respected. Over the course of the year, many things began to change. Honestly, I believe someone showed them my post. My siblings were all aware of it, and I believe that everyone who commented calling them out had an impact, so thank you to everyone. They left their church, which shocked all of us. Mom phoned numerous siblings and asked for specific examples of how she had let them down, then listened without defending or deflecting. The last of the younger siblings moved out on their own, which significantly altered the dynamics of their relationship. I'm not sure when or why it happened, but things appear to have improved during 2023. My parents began spending more time with my children and attending events. I noticed they were making an effort and spoke with them, telling them that if they truly wanted to connect, they needed to find things my kids like and figure out how to engage. I told them they couldn't just plan something they wanted to do and expect my children to go along. My father discovered a hobby that my oldest was interested in, and they have gone down a rabbit hole with it. My mother and youngest discovered a place they both enjoy, and they went there together. It isn't ideal, but they appear to be forming a healthy relationship. My wife and I remain cautious, but optimistic. In terms of my relationship with them, I've simply become emotionally disengaged. As a teenager, I read Ender's Game and identified with Ender in the way the adults were always setting him up so that he knew he would never have backup. He had to win on his own, or perish trying. I felt as if I had no backup or adult support throughout the majority of my life. Just me, and then my wife. I've created my own support system among my peers, and that's sufficient. I'm delighted my kids now have decent grandparents, but I'll never have a meaningful chat with my parents about what's going on with me. On difficult days I have my wife and a few close friends, and I consider myself extremely fortunate because this is more than many people have. Well, I'll stop there before I start rambling. My sister mocked me in front of 43 guests, toasted my failure at her engagement dinner. So I canceled the $10,000 wedding venue in my name. My name is Noah. I'm 31. I've never fit in with my family in the manner you'd expect a son or brother to. Don't get me wrong. Everything seems nice on paper. I have a decent job in IT, I own a condo where I reside, and I am polite, presentable and dependable in the ways that matter. But in my household, dependable simply meant someone we could dump things on without saying thank you. It took me most of my adult life to discover that no one in my family notices me. I'm either the invisible fixer, the punchline, or the backup plan. Never the son people boast about. Never the brother they adore. Especially not for my sister, Noah. Noah is 28, and I swear she was born with the ability to make a room swirl around her. She's one of those people who can laugh so hard that everyone else wants to join in, even if nothing is funny. She's brilliant, gorgeous, confident, and just cunning enough to stay 3 steps ahead of everyone else while yet appearing to be the victim. Growing up she had a talent for drama and used it as a weapon. I was always the scapegoat. If something went missing, I retrieved it. If she didn't pass a test, I distracted her. If she felt insecure, it was because I boasted too much about landing a part-time job while still in high school. I didn't brag, I simply mentioned it once at dinner. She cried. I was grounded. I had hoped that by the time we were adults, things would have settled down. I attempted to remain supportive despite years of animosity. When she dropped out of college after 2 semesters, I assisted her with her resume. When she wanted to move into a better apartment with her boyfriend, now fiancé, guess who co-signed the lease? And when she announced her engagement last year and stated that she wanted a family-centered wedding, I volunteered to assist in any way I could. Because this is what I do. I will assist. Even if I do not receive a thank you. Even if I am teased behind my back for still driving a 10-year-old vehicle. Even if I wasn't wanted at the table, I expected to set it. Her engagement meal was hosted at one of those fashionable restaurants with dark lighting and imitation exposed brick that appears to be both rustic and sophisticated. I'd helped her acquire the wedding site, a ludicrous lakefront property that required a $10,000 non-refundable deposit. She asked me to put it in my name because she didn't have the credit, pledging to repay me within a month. That happened 6 weeks ago. Not a cent had arrived. I kept telling myself that she will get around to it. That perhaps, just maybe, this supper will be a fresh start for us. Perhaps she'd thank me in front of everyone. Instead, I was completely caught off guard. We were halfway through dinner. Noah stepped up, glass of champagne in hand, after the servers had just served the main course, a pricey chicken dish with an unpronounceable name. She smiled first at her fiancé, then at our parents, and finally around the room. Everyone leaned in, expecting to hear something meaningful. I leaned in, hoping. To my fiancé, she exclaimed, her voice sparkling and sparkly. You are the best decision I ever made. But tonight, I want to thank someone who showed me exactly what not to do. Someone who reminds me every day what settling looks like. She looked me dead in the eyes and grinned. Let's all raise a glass to my big brother, Cowan. Thanks for being the blueprint of what not to become. For a single second I assumed she was joking. Some sort of awkward, twisted inner joke. But then the room burst into laughing. Our uncle applauded. Our mother chuckled behind her wine glass. Even our father had a grin and mumbled something like, "Well, she's not wrong." And with that, I was frozen. I didn't say anything. I did not even blink. My hands remained on my lap as everyone toasted around me as if I wasn't even present. I drew the attention of my cousin Lena, one of the few family members who had always been polite to me. She offered me a tight-lipped, sympathetic grin but did not say anything else. I drank my water, pushed back my chair, and explained that I wasn't feeling well. Nobody stopped me. Nobody even inquired whether I was okay. I departed before the dessert was served. The drive home was silent. Not emotionally silent. No, my mind was filled with memories, insults and echoing laughter. But physically, all I heard was the hum of the tires and the odd blinker as I turned again, and pulled into my parking garage. That night, I stared up at the ceiling. I considered how many times I had forgiven her. How many times had I promised myself that this time would be different? Perhaps if I kept showing up, supporting her, and enduring the rudeness, she would notice me. She would appreciate me. But now I realized she didn't need to shout. She did not respect me. She could accomplish it with a smirk and a toast. That's when I recalled my deposit. The $10,000 venue deposit is still in my name and recorded in my bank's pending transaction history. I opened my laptop, signed in, and read the cancellation policy twice. Then I choose cancel. There's no warning. There was no reimbursement to her card because it did not exist. It was all me. I slumped back in my chair. My heart was not racing. It was no longer angry. It simply felt serene. The first SMS arrived at 7:30 the next morning. Then another. Then a phone call. Then 3 missed ones. Then there's a voicemail from Noah, yelling about a mix-up. How could this happen? And, do you even know what you've done? I knew exactly what I had done. And I wasn't even close to done. I let the phone vibrate itself to quiet. I didn't respond. Not yet. I made myself a cup of coffee, watered the plants on my balcony, and sat down to eat breakfast for the first time in what seemed like forever. Something about not being someone's doormat made meals taste better. But my peace did not last long. By 10 a.m., my mother had called. When I did not respond, she texted, Noah, please pick up. Your sister is in tears. What you did was cruel. So unnecessary. Number, why did you do this? Number, are you okay? Just the notion that I had done something incorrectly. I deleted the message. A few minutes later, another text arrived. This one is from Noah herself. Actually, multiple messages are stacked in a row. Imagine a tantrum being live tweeted in real time. Noah, what is wrong with you? Noah, you've ruined everything. Noah, you knew we needed that venue. I informed everyone about it. Noah, you should repair this today. Noah, I can't believe you'd sabotage your own sister simply because you can't bear to see me happy. There it was. The storyline shifted. I was not the target of a public insult. I was the jealous saboteur now. Noah's style is classic. That afternoon, my cousin Lena called. I did indeed pick it up. She sounded nervous. Hey. Just checking in. That toast last night. Yeah, it wasn't cool. I wanted to say something, You didn't, I said. Nor cruel, nor sharp. Just the truth. I know. I'm sorry. I felt like if I did, it would have turned into a whole thing. And it should have turned into something, I said. Maybe if someone stood up to her once in her life, we wouldn't be here. She was silent for a moment. The next step was, is it true? You canceled the venue? Yep. Wow, she remarked in a tone I couldn't understand. Half awe, half worry. She's losing her mind right now. Screaming at your parents. Blaming everyone. Her fiancé left their place this morning and hasn't come back. I did not respond to that. You know they were counting on that venue for the engagement photos, right? She said. They booked a whole photo shoot around it this weekend. Then I hope they brought a tripod, I added, drinking my coffee. There was another prolonged silence. Then Lena dropped her voice and whispered. I know I didn't say anything last night, but I see you can. I really do. I did not say anything for a time. Then, thanks. When I hung up, the silence that ensued was not empty. It was filled. Full of everything I'd been holding in for years. I remembered Noah getting caught sneaking out of high school and blaming it on me for giving her the notion. I remembered our family trip, when she dropped her phone in the ocean and my parents forced me to pay to replace it. I remembered how, When I moved into my first apartment, she stated it smelled like failure, then invited her friends over without asking and wrecked the place. I continued donating. But not anymore. The next escalation occurred that evening. This time, it was Dad. He rarely got involved unless there was money on the line, so I knew what his call was about before I answered. "Noah," he said with a guarded tone. "This thing with the venue. What's going on?" Asked Noah. "She says you just canceled it out of spite." "Did she tell you what she said about me at her toast?" He paused. "Afterward." "Of course. She was joking. You're too sensitive." There it was. The family refrained. The gaslight gospel. "You think it's a joke to tell a room full of people that your brother is a cautionary tale?" I inquired, my tone as calm as a lake before a storm. "She didn't mean it that way. But she did mean for me to put $10,000 on the line without a contract. And she did mean to use me as a punchline. So no, Dad. I don't think I'm going to fix it." He said. "She's your sister." As if the term meant more than it did. "She's a grown woman," I said. "And I'm not her safety net anymore." He exhaled deeply, as if I were the one draining him. "You'll regret this, Ken. Families stick together." "Funny," I said. "Mine never did." I hung up. That night, I received an email from the venue confirming the cancellation and reimbursement process. It was refunded to my account because it was my deposit. Seeing that confirmation didn't make me happy. It did not make me complacent. It simply made me feel clear. For the first time in years, I began to wonder whether this was the end of it. Maybe they'd leave me alone and work things out on their own. It was 9:43 p.m. when I received the knock at my door. I opened the door and there she was. Real. No makeup. Hair pulled back. Eyes are red and swollen. But she still had that small smirk, as if she knew she was going to win. "Can I come in?" she inquired. I didn't respond. She stepped forward nonetheless. What she said next made my stomach turn. "Noah, I need you to give me the money back. I already told people the wedding's still happening at the lakefront venue. We can rebook it. You don't have to be petty." I blinked. Petty? Petty. That's when I understood she didn't come to apologize. She still didn't comprehend. She came to collect. And I was no longer hers to collect from. But before I could say anything or take a breath to answer, she made another error. She looked around my place, wrinkled her nose and said, "You really haven't redecorated since college, huh?" I smiled. I carefully and deliberately reached for the doorknob. "Noah," she replied, her gaze widening. "Don't do this." I opened the door. But before I could close it, I said 6 words that I had been waiting my entire life to say. "You taught me exactly what to be." And then I closed the door in her face. I stood there for a time, my hand still resting on the doorknob, peering at the wood grain as if it contained answers. I almost expected her to pound on the door again, yell, cry, and negotiate. However, she didn't. Instead, I heard the crisp click of her heels against the hallway tile, followed by the faint echo of her footfall as she walked away. Or so I thought. About 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. First, my mother texted me, then my father, and finally a number I didn't recognize. "Jordan, Noah's fiancé, has called from an unknown number. We need to talk." I stared at the message for a moment. Jordan and I had only communicated once or twice since our engagement. Both occasions were superficial. He always appeared to be in good health, not a horrible person, but not someone who thought for himself. Noah had him wrapped around her finger. I used to think so. More out of curiosity than anything else, I responded. "About what?" He responded nearly immediately. "What exactly happened at the venue? She said anything about you last night?" I did not laugh. "I just wanted you to know that." That last line touched me differently. I replied. "You're engaged to her. Why are you texting me?" He said. "Because I believe I am about to make the biggest mistake of my life." I didn't respond. Not because I didn't have anything to say, but because I wasn't sure where this was headed. And I wasn't ready to become someone else's therapist simply because my sister couldn't keep her ego under control. By the next morning, however, it was evident that Noah had escalated the situation. She shared a long, excessively tinted photo of herself and Jordan on Instagram, with a caption so sweet it might have been coated in syrup. "Can't let jealousy steal our joy. Some people try to tear others down just because they're miserable. But real love rises above." The comments were predictable. Her friend said, "Ugh, haters gonna hate, and you're glowing. And ignore the negativity, babe, you're amazing." I did not make a comment. I did not even open the post directly. I just viewed the preview, which someone else emailed to me, of course. Her message read, "She's spinning the whole story. I'm sorry. This is getting gross." Yes, it was. Because the story was being revised in real time. I wasn't just the brother who canceled the deposit. I was the spiteful villain out to ruin his baby sister's happiness. The truth is, she knew I would not defend myself online. She knew I wasn't the sort to spread the truth on social media. That was not my style. But perhaps that is why she believed she could get away with it. She made a mistake there. Because she didn't comprehend, and no one else did, that I had something she was unaware of. Something I'd kept out of habit, not expecting to ever use it. When I helped her secure the venue, she was too lethargic to complete the vendor paperwork. So, I did it. And when they asked for the event's key contact, I put myself, because I was the one who paid, was in charge of correspondence, and received every email, document, and signed agreement right to my inbox. Include the contract PDF, and Noah's signed acknowledgement. It was not legally binding. It was not a loan or anything. However, she signed a paper agreeing to be responsible for the reimbursement of all booking-related expenditures. What's the kicker? The contract included a clause that explicitly stated that any willful misrepresentation of the event by the client that causes public disparagement or reputational harm to the venue or its representatives could result in not only cancellation, but also a blacklist from all affiliated event spaces under that management company. Translation: she may kiss her entire backup list goodbye. So, no. I did not intend to go public. But I didn't have to be quiet either. First, I forwarded Jordan the original signed agreement. I did not add any remark, only the document. Several hours later he responded. He proceeded. "So she lied to me, said you never paid, said you made it all up to embarrass her. I'm starting to realize I don't actually know who I'm marrying." I just said, "Then it's time you decide who you are without her." The second thing I did was much more subtle. I made a stealth phone call to the venue coordinator Jill, who had been very nice during our brief conversation. I said that I had canceled the reservation, but that I was concerned that my sister would try to rebook under a different name, using one of her friends or family as the applicant. Jill let out a breath and responded, "That wouldn't be the first time someone's tried that. But thank you for the heads up. We'll flag the name and the event type. We've got eyes." Finally, the third item I waited for. Because the next explosion was not mine to start. I knew what was coming. 3 days later, it landed. A voicemail from my mother, frantic and confused. "Noah, what did you do? Noah is losing it. She says the venue blacklisted her. She can't get anyone to book her now. What happened? You need to call me. This has gone too far." I did not call. They felt humiliated since no one called when it was me. Nobody had stood up when I was the punchline. Nobody had cared as I was sitting at the table, watching everyone laugh at me as if I were a prop in my sister's comedy routine. So no, I was not interested in damage control. And I was absolutely not done. Because there was still one more card to play. Noah was completely unprepared for what happened. The thing that would make everyone, including her, look at me differently. And it was already in action. They just didn't realize it yet. I waited not out of spite, but for strategic reasons. See, there is a distinction between vengeance and pettiness. Pettiness is impulsive, it reacts. However, real revenge is quiet. Patient. It waits for the right moment to land. Not when people anticipate it, but when they really need you. That's when it hits hardest. Noah was about to learn his lesson in full stereo sound. I didn't answer any of their calls. Not Mom, not Dad, and certainly not Noah, who was by this point leaving voice messages ranging from sorrowful to venomous depending on how desperate she felt. 1 minute it was, "Noah, I'm sorry, okay? I didn't mean it like that. Let's just move on."
My sister called me a bloated suburban mom, then posted my baby's photos to impress her rich fiancé, so I ruined her engagement with one dinner. I'm a 27-year-old female who has never had a good connection with my elder sister Lena, 32 female. But things got worse after I revealed my pregnancy last year. For background, I've been with my spouse Ethan, 29, male, for 8 years, married for 3, and we both have steady employment in finance and healthcare respectively. We had always expected to start a family around this time, and when we found out I was pregnant, we were overjoyed. However, Lena had a different perspective on the subject. She has always prided herself on being the family's free spirit, traveling extensively and changing occupations every few years, which is very okay. Everyone deserves to live life on their own terms. But when she found out about my pregnancy, she turned it into a crusade against my life decisions. It began with subtle comments about how I was wasting my youth and settling for mediocrity. She kept reminding me that I was only 27 and had my entire life ahead of me. These comments progressed into outright condemnation of every element of my pregnancy. I never expected her to understand or agree with my views, but expressing outright hatred for my every move was simply needless. She used to make snarky remarks about my weight gain, saying things like, "I guess you're just giving up on your appearance altogether, and you know some women actually maintain their figures during pregnancy." At first I dismissed it as Lena being Lena, but the longer I tried to ignore it, the worse it became. She'd give me articles about women who had lost their identities after becoming mothers, or memes about giving up on life after having children. It wasn't simply fat-shaming anymore. It was as if she was actively trying to make me regret my decision to have children. I also discovered that she was speaking about me to mutual acquaintances, saying things like, "She's wasting her potential," or "I just don't get why anyone would choose to ruin their life like that." It ached because these were people I cared about, and her remarks had instilled doubt in their minds. One acquaintance even wondered if I was truly prepared for the huge responsibility of parenting, which felt like a strike to the gut. The breaking point occurred during my baby shower. My mother and best friend had planned a lovely celebration, and everything was going well until Lena arrived 3 hours later, plainly tipsy. She spent the entire event making loud comments about how I looked like I was about to explode, despite the fact that I was only 6 months pregnant. She commented on how bloated my face had become and how she couldn't believe I would choose diapers over fantasies. I ended up crying in the bathroom while my mother attempted to console me. Ethan was furious and ordered her to leave, which she did while passionately screaming that we were all overly sensitive. My other friends were horrified by her behavior, but Lena dismissed it. For weeks afterward, she would bring up the incident, giggling about how everyone should relax and blaming me for being excessively emotional due to my pregnancy. However, it wasn't simply the baby shower. There were other little occurrences that I didn't want to address at the time since I was too fatigued to deal with them. Lena once asked me to a yoga class, stating it was her way of keeping me in shape, but when I arrived she spent the entire time making passive-aggressive remarks about how much more difficult it was for me than it used to be. I left in tears, feeling as if I could never live up to her ridiculous expectations of who I should be. She'd also casually dropped by my house with her friends, treating me like a spectacle, and pointing out how much my life was about to change, and how she couldn't imagine being so tied down. These visits were not about bonding or support. They were an opportunity for her to showcase her carefree life in front of me. Fast forward to last month, Lena had become engaged to Daniel, 34, male, a wealthy businessman from a family-oriented household. I'd heard bits and pieces about him from my parents, about how he came from a wealthy family, was well known in his field, and appeared to be the ideal match for Lena, at least on paper. The engagement was unexpected, but not wholly surprising considering Lena's inclination to rush headfirst into new relationships and situations with little foresight. But this time there was a noticeable change in her conduct that I could not ignore. Almost overnight, my sister changed entirely. After months of radio silence, no calls, texts, or concerns about me or my daughter, she began reaching out on a regular basis. It started with casual texts about how the baby was doing, followed by offers to drop off gifts. She even bought pricey baby clothes and toys that Ethan and I had never asked for or required. At first I tried to convince myself that she was attempting to make things right, but the more I thought about it, the more it seemed like her newfound enthusiasm was staged, rather than genuine. The final straw came when I realized that Lena had been sharing photos of my daughter on social media, which she had shot during one of her drop-in visits. I hadn't granted her permission to share those images, and I hadn't been asked about them. She labeled photos with words like, "the world's proudest aunt," and "look at my beautiful niece," painting a picture of a devoted, committed family member. It was frustrating because I knew the truth. This was not about my daughter or her alleged love of family. It was about Lena attempting to create a narrative, particularly in front of Daniel, that did not reflect the truth of who she was or how she treated me throughout my pregnancy. Then, Lena invited us to dinner. It was presented as a casual family meeting, but it was evident that the main goal was for us to properly meet Daniel. My parents were already taken with him, and they urged that it would be a fantastic occasion for everyone to get together. Ethan and I agreed to go, partially out of obligation and partly out of curiosity about how Lena would behave in front of Daniel and the rest of the family. The evening began uneventfully. Lena was in full hostess mode, ensuring that everything was great. She presented Daniel to Ethan and me with an over-the-top warmth that felt contrived, as if she was playing a character she hadn't yet mastered. To his credit, Daniel was polite and appeared to be genuinely kind, yet the entire evening felt stiff. I could sense the weight of unspoken words hanging in the air. As we sat down for dinner, the conversation turned to family, children, and future plans. Lena leaned into the story she'd carefully created over the previous few weeks, gushing about how much she enjoyed spending time with my daughter and how thrilled she was to be an aunt. Daniel, apparently impressed by this alleged side of Lena, weighed in, saying how wonderful it was that Lena was so close to her niece. He was talking about the following. One of the things I love most about Lena is how she's always been so family-oriented, especially with her niece. Her love for children is something that really stood out to me. I couldn't hold back any longer. I glanced at Daniel and, as calmly as I could, gave him the truth. I told him how Lena had treated me throughout my pregnancy, how she had body-shamed me, dismissed my decisions, and turned my baby shower, one of the most significant days of my life, into a living nightmare. I told him how she had insulted my plan to become a boring suburban mom, and how she had sent me horrible texts about sacrificing my life for a baby. The room became strained. Lena's face had lost its color, and for the first time that evening she was silent. Daniel was stunned, gazing between Lena and me as he processed all I had said. He requested to view the texts, and I handed him my phone without hesitation, reading through the months of messages documenting Lena's unwavering cruelty. As he went through them, his expression changed from astonishment to incredulity to wrath. Lena murmured something about being misunderstood and not meaning anything by her statements, but it was too late. The proof was right there in black and white. Daniel was confused about what to say or do. He stood up quickly, excused himself from the table, and left the restaurant. The rest of us sat there in startled silence, watching him leave. Lena was in complete terror and followed him out, but not before turning to me and snarling, "You've ruined everything." That was 4 weeks ago, and what happened next was utterly unexpected. Lena had not talked to me since supper. No calls, no texts, just radio silence. I assumed she was ignoring me, but then she called unexpectedly. Her voice was unsteady, and for the first time in years, she appeared vulnerable. She informed me that Daniel had called off their engagement. He couldn't reconcile the person she had shown him with the horrors I had told him about her mistreatment of me. But now I have no idea what to do. Lena hasn't contacted me since that night, and frankly, I'm not sure I want her to. My parents' silence hasn't helped either. They've decided to remain entirely neutral, offering no opinions or support, as if they're waiting for the dust to settle and me to move on. I get the impression they're more concerned with maintaining the peace than with understanding how badly I was affected by Lena's conduct during my pregnancy, and now, it's irritating because despite everything I still feel guilty. I'm wondering if I went too far by confronting her in front of Daniel. I worry if I'm to blame for her engagement breaking apart. But then I remember the months of hurtful comments, the passive-aggressive jabs, and the fact that she had the guts to appear as if she cared simply to please someone else. And I can't shake the notion that no matter how much my family tries to downplay it, what Lena did was incorrect. So, am I to blame for exposing her, or am I finally standing up for myself, as I should have done a long time ago? I wish I could claim I know the solution, but I'm still trying to figure it out, and I could really use some help. Update 1. It's been a few days since everything went down, and nothing much has changed. If anything, the stillness has been louder. My parents haven't mentioned anything to me about the problem. They haven't even addressed what happened at the restaurant that night, and it's becoming increasingly evident that they just want this to be finished. I expected them to at least provide some support or inquire how I was doing after everything, but they didn't. It's as if they're choosing to ignore what happened, believing that if we all stay silent for long enough, everything will be fine. But what's really getting to me are the texts I've been receiving from mutual friends and relatives, all of which essentially say the same thing, that I should contact Daniel and make things right. Clearly, this is all about Lena's future now. They are more concerned about her relationship with Daniel than about the agony she caused me, as if her engagement somehow validates all she did. It is irritating. Everyone keeps saying it's my obligation to fix this, as if I'm the one who ruined her relationship and should be the one to repair it. Never mind that Lena spent months emotionally ripping me down at one of my most vulnerable points in life. No, evidently the fact that I stuck up for myself and revealed the truth is destroying her life. One relative had the gall to propose that I apologize to Lena because it was the adult thing to do. I couldn't believe what I heard. What do you apologize for? For telling Daniel the truth? For revealing how Lena treated me, something no one else appears to care about? The hypocrisy is staggering. I made it abundantly plain to them and anyone else who inquired that I do not believe in retribution or holding grudges for the sake of it. But this is not about vengeance. It's about how Lena emotionally wounded me when I was already struggling. She turned what should have been a joyful and beautiful moment, the delivery of my first child, into a horror. How am I expected to forgive this? What if I lost the baby as a result of the stress she caused me? Throughout my pregnancy, I was depressed and apprehensive, constantly thinking about her next harsh remark or how she would twist the knife even further. I can't count how many sleepless nights I spent crying, wondering whether I was doing something wrong by simply trying to enjoy this new chapter of my life. She robbed me of moments I'll never get back, and now everyone expects me to ignore it because it could influence her future. I also had a talk with my folks the other day, and while calling it a conversation sounds generous, it was essentially pointless. I had thought they would view things from my perspective and at least acknowledge how severely I was hurt. Instead, they attempted to resume neutral play. It was the same old song and dance, with them sitting on the fence and acting as if this were some minor sibling squabble. I could see, though, by their tone and the way they avoided the matter, that they wanted me to be the bigger person. They want me to forgive Lena, forget what she did, and move on, because it is the correct thing to do in their view. But I can't. I will not. I don't think they realize how much this has affected me. Perhaps they do, and they just don't care. In any case, it was evident that I was unlikely to receive any genuine help from them. My mother kept repeating things like, "Family is family, and you two have always had your differences, but you're sisters, and sisters forgive each other." My father merely nodded along, without saying anything. Everything felt as if they were attempting to brush everything under the carpet, as if this was simply another of Lena's minor outbursts that I should ignore for the sake of harmony. However, this is not about peace for me, it's about respect. It's about creating boundaries and refusing to let anyone, including relatives, walk all over me simply because we share blood. I will not allow anyone to make me feel guilty for safeguarding my mental health and standing up for what is right. Everyone can tell me to forgive and forget, but I can't do it right now. And frankly, I don't believe I should have to. I haven't heard a word from Lena. Part of me wonders if she's waiting for me to crawl back and make the first move, as I've done so many times before. However, this time is different. This time, I won't be the one to bridge the gap. If she wants to chat or mend something, she'll have to come to me. Even then, I'm not sure I'm ready to welcome her back into my life after everything she's done. So here I am, stranded in this limbo where everyone believes I am the villain of the story, the one who ruined everything. But I know the truth. That's enough for now. Update 2. Some things have transpired since my last post, and I'm still trying to get my head around it all. I never anticipated all of this to turn out the way it has. But here we are. After weeks of silence from Lena and nothing from my parents save their customary neutrality, something unexpected happened. Daniel reached out to me. It was entirely unexpected. Ethan and I were out for lunch one afternoon when we ran into him. I could tell he had seen us first because he hesitated before approaching, but he eventually did. I braced myself for an unpleasant encounter, but he was surprisingly calm and even warm. He asked if we could talk for a while, so we exited the cafe, leaving Ethan to finish up inside. Daniel was cordial but forthright, and he made it clear from the start that he didn't blame me or Ethan for what transpired that evening. He said I should be at peace because it wasn't our fault. That was a relief to hear since, while I knew I had done the right thing by exposing Lena's actions, there was still a part of me that felt bad. Maybe it was because everyone else seemed to think I ruined her future. But hearing it from Daniel, who was actually involved, helped to lift the weight off my shoulders. He told me he appreciated my candor that night and that I had not ruined things, as Lena had said. Then he began to open up about his own issues. Apparently, I wasn't the only one who observed Lena's harsh, judgmental personality. Daniel had noticed flaws in their relationship for several months, and my confrontation pushed everything to the surface. He stated that Lena's actions toward me had astonished him. More importantly, he had begun to see that her criticism had spread to other aspects of their relationship. He stated how Lena had grown increasingly fascinated with status and material possessions, more concerned with how much money he earned than with their genuine relationship. She would make causal statements about his employment and the types of people he should network with, gently attempting to mold his life to fit whatever image she had in mind. Daniel wasn't naive. He understood that relationships required some level of compromise and influence, but as he paid closer attention, he saw Lena wasn't conceding. She was attempting to control. She had even started criticizing him in front of their friends under the pretext of friendly teasing, but it was usually about his appearance or things he did wrong in her opinion. He stated that he began to feel as if he was being shaped into someone else, someone worth Lena's time and attention, and it wasn't just their engagement that was unraveling. Her professional life was also disintegrating. Lena had lately been laid off from her most recent job, another of her adventures, as my parents refer to them. Lena had always been a career nomad, jumping from one promising job to the next, but this time was different. She had not chosen to go. She had been dismissed. Daniel didn't go into detail, but he implied that her attitude and unwillingness to work well with others had played a significant role. This all happened around the same time that their relationship began to unravel, adding to their stress. With her engagement in risk and her career in disarray, Lena contacted me. She hadn't spoken to me since the night at the restaurant, but she was now sending me texts. The tone was radically different than previously. There were no sarcastic remarks or passive-aggressive insults. Instead, she sounded fragile and desperate. She was asking for help, stating she was lost and needed her sister. It was startling to read since it was such a departure from the Lena I'd grown to anticipate, the one who had spent months making me feel worthless. A part of me wanted to feel awful for her. Lena had always been our family's golden child, the one who could never do anything wrong in the eyes of our parents. Growing up, it seemed like she could make any mistake and yet land on her feet, but I was constantly trying to keep up. And now, everything she had built, or rather meticulously nurtured to appear flawless from the outside, was crumbling around her. I could see how this was affecting her and how desperate she must be to salvage something from the rubble. But then I remembered all of the horrible things she'd said and done. I recall sitting in the toilet at my baby shower, sobbing as my friends and family tried to console me because Lena had turned what should have been a happy occasion into yet another opportunity to bring me down. I remembered the texts in which she referred to me as a boring suburban mom and insulted my decision to have a family, as well as how she made me feel like I was wasting my life by choosing happiness over her definition of success. I recalled everything. And with that, any sympathy I could have had for her began to disappear. I'm not ready to forgive her. Not now. Maybe never. Even if she is going through a difficult period, it does not erase the months of emotional pain she caused on me. I've been thinking a lot about what it means to forgive someone. And I've learned that forgiveness cannot be forced simply because someone else is struggling. Forgiveness, if it ever comes, must be real. And I am currently nowhere near that point. As expected, my parents remain undecided. When Lena approached them to share her side of the tale, they did not take a firm stance. They are sympathetic to her position, of course, but they continue to handle it as if it were a petty disagreement between brothers. They keep asking if I've spoken with her yet, and if I'm willing to sit down and sort things out. I know they expect me to be the one to solve things, but this time, I refuse to make the first move. I'm tired of being the one who bends and is expected to smooth things out. For the time being, I'm trying to focus on my own family and the life Ethan and I are creating together. I don't have the energy to deal with Lena's mess, and I feel no duty to clean it up. If she wants to fix things, she'll have to find it out for herself. I've spent far too much time prioritizing her needs over my own, and I'm not willing to do so longer. Update 3. Hello everyone. After speaking with Daniel, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. It felt like a weight had been lifted from my chest. For so long, I'd been carrying around this guilt, as if I was somehow responsible for what had happened between Lena and Daniel, for the demise of her idyllic existence. However, having Daniel tell me clearly that it was not my responsibility that Lena had done this to herself brought me a sense of relief. It confirmed all I had felt all along. For the first time, I realized that the guilt I'd been feeling from my parents, friends, and relatives' urge to mend things was unfounded. It was not my obligation to fix what Lena had shattered. With this newfound clarity, I was determined to confront Lena once and for all. I couldn't keep letting this go, and I wasn't going to let anyone bully me into forgiving her or making things right for her sake. So I contacted her and informed her that I wanted to meet in person, not to reconcile, but to put a stop to the situation once and for all. I needed her to know where I stood, and I wanted her to hear it straight from me. When I arrived at Lena's house, she appeared untidy, distressed, and, for the first time in a long time, vulnerable. But I knew better than to fall for her charade. I'd seen this side of Lena before, the one who would burst into tears when things didn't go her way. This was the same individual who had spent months dismissing my life choices and made me feel like a failure for deciding to have a family. She might appear broken now, but I wasn't going to let that erase the reality of her actions. I got right to the point. I told her I was not going to accept any of the guilt for what had transpired. This mess was hers and hers only. She needed to take responsibility for her actions and quit playing the victim. I made it plain that I was not to blame for her engagement breaking apart or her life disintegrating. Her own actions had created all of this. I could see the astonishment on her face as I talked, but I was not there to cushion the blow. I'd been soft for far too long. I also informed her that if she wanted to make amends with Daniel, she needed to apologize properly this time. For a brief moment, I felt myself falling into a more commanding tone, almost as if I were directing her on what to do. However, it was not about controlling her. It was about providing her the opportunity to repair what little she had left. It was up to her to take that advice, but at least I had spoken up. Then came the hardest part. I told her I didn't want her to be in my daughter's life for a while. I needed to see actual change from her before I considered inviting her back in. I couldn't let her be near my child knowing she was still the person who had caused me so much anguish. I needed her to show that she was truly sorry and willing to change, not only for Daniel or for herself, but because she had damaged those closest to her. Until then, I had told her it was not worth it. After that, I had another conversation with my folks. I'd waited long enough, and it was time they knew the truth as well. I told them how disgusted I was with them for refusing to take a side when it was obvious who was wrong. This wasn't some minor sibling squabble. This was a significant fight that had left me profoundly hurt. Their neutrality had just exacerbated the situation, so I made it clear that I needed their support this time. If they couldn't, I asked them to maintain their distance as well. It wasn't easy telling them that, but it had to be spoken. So, here we are. Things are still a little sloppy, but I no longer bear the guilt that was dragging me down. I'm not saying everything is settled or that I have all the answers, but I do feel like I have control over my own story. I'm setting limits that I should have set a long time ago, and I'm finally prioritizing my own health and that of my family,